allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call, please.
President Todd, absent. Vice President Gibson, present. Commissioner Ancier,
Present.
Commissioner Janner,
Here.
Commissioner McBroom,
Here.
Commissioner Ruffing,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here. Okay, can we please start with matters from the public? Bridget, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
I have 2 to read and 1 signed up to speak. I'll start with Nicole Gerald. Dear Park Board Commissioners, unfortunately, I'm unable to join tomorrow's board meeting in person. I request that my email be read out loud. As an active member of our Naperville community, mother of 4 children who have spent numerous years participating in NPD-sponsored activities, and an NPD volunteer who has logged more service hours than I can count, I'm appalled by the outlandish accusations of fellow civil servant Josh McBroom. Josh McBroom is a pillar of our community. He has given countless hours of his personal time to serve the members of the community he loves. He and his wife have chosen to raise their 3 boys in Naperville because of the opportunities and programs it offers. He went 1 step beyond to volunteer on the NPD board to help maintain and expand the programs while holding the city to the highest standards for our families. The health and safety of the children and adults in our community is his ultimate priority. I question anyone's motives who would challenge his dedication and commitment to our NPD community. We are all facing the challenges and unknowns of what the global pandemic has brought. Differences of opinion on how things are handled are natural and should be encouraged. We all want what is best for everyone. Mr. McBroom has a constitutional right to express his opinion. In my opinion, his words were not disrespectful or intended to body shame anyone. I believe his point was that it would be very difficult for any adult, regardless of size, shape, gender, or athletic ability, to play a full court basketball game in a mask. Those that are asking that of our community should try it before mandating it. If any commissioner misinterpreted his private comments, they should have spoken to Josh privately, not in public forum. Now this private misinterpretation is very public. Anyone who is involved in bringing this matter to the general public via the news media should be ashamed of themselves. I opened my local paper on Sunday to read about news from the community and possibly read about of the MPD, and city honored the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice on 9/11/01. Instead, there is a picture of Josh McBroom and not highlighting all the amazing things he has done, but one comment that was misconstrued. Unbelievable. Now this family man has to explain to his children why his picture is there for all to see. What is the motivation behind this? Josh McBroom has done amazing things for our community, and that is what should be on the front page. I would like to request a formal apology be made publicly to Josh and his family by all members of the park board. During these difficult times, we need to build each other up, not tear each other down. Thank you for your time. From Ken Miller, my comment for tonight's Naperville Park District Board meeting is directed to President Todd and Council Price. Why hasn't the president and council investigated the real ethics issue of the cancel culture quad squad violation of the Open Meetings Act with the coordinated character assassination of Commissioner McBroom at the September 9 board meeting? The charges by the quad squad were disrespectful, unprofessional, and unethical to make to a fellow commissioner. I expect an answer to this question at least when the investigation report is made public. I have Shannon Adcock.
Can I take this off when I'm speaking?
Yep.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to give public comment. I'll start with a quote by Sojourner Truth. I feel safe in the midst of my enemies, for the truth is all powerful and will prevail. This past municipal, numerous women ran for elected office. Some won, some lost. As a woman proud to live in this time and place, I was glad to see moms elected to leadership roles in our community. My grandmother, a mother of 5 boys, raising boys in the 50s, mind you, would have been a trailblazer had society at her time been more open to moms in politics. Mary, Allison, and Leslie, I was hopeful that our community would benefit from moms being in your seats. Strong women in leadership can have such beautiful potential, but sadly here it went sour, barely 4 months into your terms. On September 9th, 4 freshwomen members of this board, led by Vice President Mary Gibson, launched a coordinated attack on a well-respected member of our Naperville community. Commissioner Josh McBroom liked a social media post on a private Facebook page, and due to the collusion of 4 women on this board, faced a Machiavellian attempt to cancel him. The punishment did not match the accusation, and now our community is on the radar thanks to newly elected park board commissioners who overplayed their hand. Edgar County Watchdogs, which typically highlights large-scale government failures, published an article last week showing that 3 of you, Mary Allison and Leslie, took compensation in the form of discounted park benefits after election. Thank you for putting our community under a microscope because you wanted to dilute this board and go after someone with dissenting viewpoint. Your fellow commissioner, father of 3, and a longtime community volunteer, suddenly found himself on the front page of the newspaper because you asked for an ethics probe over a laughing emoji. Dave Chappelle recently used his genius comedy to highlight the issues we are seeing in communities like ours across the country, a dramatic lack of empathy and an increase in hypocrisy. He said, quote, "Taking a man's livelihood is akin to killing him," end quote. What you did set dominoes in motion that can have significant consequences for people in their personal lives. You didn't just want to dilute this board. You wanted to destroy Josh McBroom for having a different viewpoint than your own. Fortunately, in the midst of your attempt, the truth is powerful and Josh has prevailed. His advocacy, his voice, and his livelihood is alive and well despite you. Your failed attack, it backfired. When our community looks at the cheap and tacky trick you pulled, we don't see strong women in leadership. No, we see something unbecoming of our community, something that is riddled with hypocrisy and nefarious effort. To Commissioner Todd, as a veteran member of this board, I hope that your tenure will not be defined by the error of these women. A public apology to Commissioner McBroom is a start to repair the public relations disaster of the last month. We need to show future candidates and leaders of our community that they will not be in the midst of enemies, but rather they will be among diverse and respectful leadership. I trust that Commissioner Todd will lead this board to a better place that will stay in its lane and focus on Park District business versus juvenile retaliatory efforts, especially those of newly elected officers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Bridget, are there any other matters from the public?
There are none.
All right. Next, we have recognitions and presentations. I believe we have a presentation from the DuPage Monarch Project, the 2021 Jane Fowler Habitat Award.
Hello, my name is Connie Schmidt. I am a board member for the DuPage Monarch Project. And I am also joined tonight by Lonnie Morris, who is the dreamer and the creator of the DuPage Monarch Project. For anyone who doesn't know, the DuPage Monarch Project is a collaboration between 4 major entities here in DuPage County: the Forest Preserve District, the Conservation Foundation, the Sierra Club. The local Sierra Club is the River Prairie Group, and Wild Ones of Greater DuPage. That is a national organization supporting native vegetation, thus preserving species and of plants and animals. So the real reason we're here, DuPage Monarch Project, is to give to the the Naperville Park District an award tonight called the Jane Fowler Habitat Award. This award recognizes outstanding habitat contribution made over the last year with a commitment to native species, land preservation, and also managing that land for the future. The quality and quantity of the habitat is looked over and taken into consideration when making this decision, and that maintenance plan is the one area that's super important and often forgotten when people begin new areas of rehab. So in 2021, Naperville Park District added over 7 acres of habitat. You have featured native trees, richly diverse mixes of grasses and sedges. And you also did an interesting thing. You included in this year's project a planting at Frontier Sports Complex, about 2.5 acres. And that planting was built on soil that was dredged from a local pond undergoing restoration, thus solving 2 problems at once. So with these two ongoing programs, the restoration and stabilization of shorelines, you added habitat in two different areas and homes to many species for many years. Not only have you done this work, but you have a plan for future maintenance that goes into 2039. It's unheard of in other communities. Naperville Park District truly has a vision for your parks to be healthy places for bees and butterflies, as well as people. So I must say, you have done an incredible job, and it appears you have crossed every T and dotted every I in your work for habitat this year, and we're excited that the work of signatories like yourselves, what you have done to make DuPage County a monarch-friendly community. So way to go, Naperville Park District, thank you. I have this award for your assistant director, or vice president, and let me put my mask on. Congratulations to you all and your staff for this wonderful effort. And Sue, I have a copy of my remarks if you want them for some reason for press comments.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. All right. Next, we have market and refunding update presented by Eric Anderson of Piper Sandler and Company.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm just going to go ahead and I have to re-log in because it was just a few more minutes. All right, there we go. Hi, good evening. So we were here to extend the conversation that we began with the Finance Committee back in February of this year, where we talked about refunding some of the district's outstanding debt to generate debt service savings. No new project money, just refunding and lowering the cost of our borrowings that were incurred in 2014 and 2015. You may recall in February, we had attempted refunding. However, rates went up in the months of March and April and even into May and began to start trending a little bit lower when we got into June, July, August. And here we go. This is the rates as of yesterday. So what we see here right now is that we have seen rates go up about 1/4 of a point in the past 3 weeks or so, recently settling down. The 10-year Treasury had hit a 160. It's down to about a 152 right now. One of the reasons is that the Federal Reserve has indicated they were going to be removing the monetary stimulus that's been in place since the pandemic. And also CPI, our inflation rate here in the United States, is right now at 5.3% year over year. So the market's starting to see that tapering, as this is called, is imminent, and that interest rates are beginning to rise ever so slightly off of what were really 30 to 40-year lows in the marketplace. And you can really see that in the slide, or the chart rather, called Geo Bond Buyer Index 10-year history. We could go back a lot further and you just see rates being significantly higher than that. So the 10-year rate, as you can see, is really bouncing on those bottom rungs, whereas the most recently we saw rates go up by about 1/4%. Still attractive, yet very volatile. Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm looking at my,
It's okay.
okay. All right, I think I've got it now. So one of the things that we're observing is legislation coming out of Washington. Now, we shared this with the Finance Committee at the meetings that we had in August and September, and at that time, this really hadn't been on the radar. However, we do have some reconciliation process going on right now in Washington. One of those outcomes might be that advance refundings would be allowed on a tax exempt basis again. Right now, because this is not callable and wouldn't be until December of 23, it would be needing to be refunded on a taxable basis. If advance refundings are returned to the marketplace, the district would be able to refund it on a tax exempt basis. We've got a slide on that in a little bit in terms of what the economic benefit would be, but tax exempt rates are traditionally lower than taxable rates, and so that would make an economic incentive to do that. However, we're still waiting for that legislation to be approved, and it might not be. So we think that right now, we think that by the time we get to December, this will either be approved or it won't be. We already know that the municipal lobby has said there were 4 planks they were hoping for. They're now just saying, and it's shown in the bolded section in the last 2 paragraphs, they're really banking on just the one, which is the repeal of advance refundings. So again, we'll see what happens there, but we're observing that.
Eric, if I may,
Please.
If it is approved, the tax exempt, will that be effective immediately, or when would that be effective?
The bill as written is effective 30 days after it would be approved. So if it was approved, say in December,
Right.
then we'd be out in January of 22.
Thank you.
Sure. Here are recent municipal bond rates, and you can see I've provided you with both taxable and tax exempt. The tax exempt right now, not applicable. It might be. The taxable yields are really what we're looking at, and you can see that those are very attractive rates, starting with 0%, a zero handle, as we call it, 0.32, 42.69, et cetera. But even as we get out to 2035, we're only at a 2.47%. That compares to some of your existing outstanding debt at 4%. That makes sense then to refund and generate those debt service savings. As you can see, the difference between taxable and tax exempt would provide the district with a little bit of an incentive, or rather a little bit of a bonus, if you will, relative to its savings. So here is your total existing levy debt. You're right, this is sensitive. I won't talk too much about this, but we know that we have several series of bonds that are outstanding. We're specifically looking at the 2015 bonds. This, by the way, is your levied debt. You have 2 forms of debt. One is levied, that's actually extended as property tax to taxpayers. You have another form of debt called a debt certificate that's paid for from your operating funds, namely your corporate and rec fund. We're going to concentrate right now on the 2015s. And then here is your levy debt with a 1.5% annual CPI. So when we structure your debt, we have to do some guesswork as to what CPI might be in the future. We've chosen a lower rate than history has proven. History right now is 2% for the last 10 years. We're banking on a 1.5% increase in annual CPI. Right now, as I mentioned before, we're at a 5.3% CPI through September. That suggests that this year, 2021, which affects levy year 2022, will be closer to a 3.5% to 5% range. The maximum that the district can extend is 5%. That's prescribed by tax caps. This is the 2015 bond with its characteristics, and you can see there that 4% rate that I was talking about, that's in the lower right-hand corner. We've got about $6.7 million there that is eligible for refunding. These are all the callable bonds. You have more bonds outstanding than this. However, these are just the callable bonds. Those are the only ones would make economic sense to refund. Here is one of the structures that we were looking at when we reviewed this with the Finance Committee. We were just over the $900,000 mark in savings. We watched 25 basis point increase in rates. That declined now to what you see here, just shy of the $750,000 mark. It's about $78,000 per tenth. sorry, just a little off here with mine versus this one. And here's the 2014 debt certificates. A larger sized issue. This has been refunded a couple of different times already. Once for about $550,000 of savings, the other one for about $321,000 savings. So this would be the third bite of the apple, as we call it. This one generates a lot more nominal savings, though, because of the fact that we're just refunding $2 million, and those coupons are at either 3 or 4%, an average of 3.65. And this is what those savings look like. These were about $96,000. This is about this was about $96,000 about a month ago. About $7,800 per tenth. This one's shorter, so again, less savings and less impact for higher interest rates there too. Here we go. Here is the impact of tax-exempt refunding. So, I'm sorry, this is probably pretty small. I hope you can read it. What you can see here is that if we do receive tax-exempt treatment, the savings are supercharged, and we get about an extra $250,000 of savings versus the taxable approach. So again, just waiting a little bit of time will at least reveal whether or not there is an opportunity to save additional funds. And that's what our advice would be at this point, is just waiting about another month. Relative to the calendar of events, we had the meetings with the Finance Committee in August. We're here this evening. And then on October the 28th, what we're asking the board to do is to approve a parameters ordinance. That parameters ordinance is only executed if and when savings meet your targets. So whether that's as a taxable bond because rates have fallen, or whether that's a tax-exempt bond because legislation has changed, if the resultant interest rates at that time are attractive, then the district would be able to move forward with refunding that, either one or both of those issues, and generate savings. I've got a lot of to be determined dates out here, only because we're waiting for that legislation and we're uncertain as to when it would be passed, if passed. And again, our observations right now is potentially that the legislative bodies in Washington may wait all the way up to the final couple of days, and that suggests somewhere in late November, early December. So I'm happy to take any questions, or Sue, would you like to make comment here too, please?
So since some of you haven't been here when we've approved a parameters ordinance, what that would mean is you would give the authority to myself and Ray and usually the board president, and with Eric's team, we would be making the decision to refund and could go ahead and do that without coming to the board. The parameters ordinance sets a ceiling on interest rates and the issue. And then at the next board meeting, we come back and report the results. So just want to make sure we wouldn't be coming back to you again after the approval of the parameters ordinance. We could definitely notify everyone if the sale were to go through, and we've done that successfully. I'd say probably the last 4 issues that we've done an ordinance like this. It prevents us, if we didn't do one, we would have to come for approval on the night of a board meeting and sell on that day. So it does not allow us the flexibility, correct?
Correct.
I'm speaking when the expert is here.
Yeah,
You
no,
could
that's-
explain this probably much better than I can.
No, that's a great point about the parameters ordinance, and really the comment about tying the bond market to your Board of Commissioners date sometimes is not beneficial. We saw that 2 weeks ago on a Monday where rates went down 7 basis points on Monday, and by the end of the week, they were a full 20 basis points higher. That was after the Fed met on September the 22nd. So these things can be volatile. Yes, Josh.
And just so, and I agree with Eric and the parameters here, you want Eric to have the flexibility to, if rates do move, to not have to, contact the board or wait for the meeting. So I just have one follow-up question. When you mentioned end of November or early December, you were speaking about the Washington legislation.
Correct, yes.
And if and when they pass that bill, Then we'd wait another 30 days for that bill to come in effect to take advantage of the tax-free possibility.
That's correct.
So we would be potentially waiting until the end of the year to make that decision.
Right, it would be.
And a lot could happen with interest rates between now and then, right?
Yes, right. So arguably, we would wait until January, but we might be able to price in December and close in January. So we'll wait to see what the exact rules are if it's approved, but we would expect that you would be either executing in December or January. And this assumes, again, that interest rates for the tax-exempt bonds are attractive.
Eric, on the parameters orders, when would we know what the parameters are? Would that be going into the October 28th meeting, well in advance of it?
Yes, you'll have that for board packets that go out, however many days they go out before your board meeting, yes.
Yeah, typically what the parameters that you would see is a cap on an interest rate.
Right.
And then a total issue amount. And usually we give flexibility on that issue amount, just in case.
And the process of the parameter is that we would provide what are called price thoughts to the district and share with them what savings would be produced at that time. If they're insufficient, then we don't move forward. If we still go through with it and bring it to you, you still have the opportunity to say no by the designated officials. And as Sue mentioned, that's typically been Sue, Ray, and the board president, but it can be anybody we need to have at least one board member that makes that decision, and you could have as many as 2.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Eric. Thanks,
Okay.
Sue.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on to updates and reports. I will start with the Riverwalk Commission. The Naperville Riverwalk Commission met yesterday, October 13th. We discussed repairs to Moser Tower, which will be completed in the early spring, and plans to get design work complete for several aspects of the 2031 Riverwalk Master Plan, including the design plans to make the Riverwalk accessible for people of all physical abilities. We discussed plans to add sign attachments to the Riverwalk maps that have QR codes. It'll direct visitors to a website where they can learn more about the 2031 master plan. We also discussed recent Park District maintenance that was completed along the Riverwalk, including a railing that was replaced on by Jefferson and a patched roof at the Grand Pavilion. And finally, Parks Operation Manager Tom Stibbe introduced Mike DiChristina to members of the commission. Mike has transitioned to Park Specialist 2 for the Riverwalk. As a longtime employee, Mike has done great work for the Park District, and we're really excited to have him in this new role in the Riverwalk. All right. Finance Committee, Commissioner McBroom, do you have an update?
We don't have an update other than we are meeting tomorrow at 9:30 at the main administrative building.
Thank you. Commissioner Janner, do you have an update from the Legislative Committee?
Thank you, Vice President Gibson. Only that the Legislative Committee will meet next on Friday, November 12th at 4:30 p.m. And as part of that meeting, we've invited some local legislators that are part of our districts and so on. So it certainly would encourage any other commissioners that are not on the committee that happen to be available at that time to feel free to join us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Janner. Commissioner Ancier, do you have an update from the Parks and Rec Committee?
Yes, the Parks and Rec Committee met today at 5:30, just before this meeting. With new business just went through. We got a really interesting proposal for a possible donation to develop a mini golf course in Naperville. We just heard the idea from the donors, and we'll have to be speaking with them to see kind of how this all would work, if it's something that's even feasible or wanted. But it was an interesting idea that got brought to us. We talked about some things that are going to be coming to us on the board to decide upon, including repairs that are needed to the Springbrook well, which had a lightning strike and caused a lot of damage. So that will be on the consent agenda tonight, I believe. Renovations at the Springbrook Golf Course, the Knock Knolls Park Timber Footbridge removal, and then we got a preview of the 2022 budget. We got reports and updates from all the other planning, recreation, golf parks, and marketing. Talk about the Halloween happening that's coming up. Forest therapy walks, which sounds like a really interesting thing that's happening now as well. There's some fleet item projects that are going to be on consent agenda as well.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Ancier. Next up, we have NRPA reports. Since our last board meeting, several commissioners attended the National Recreation and Parks Association Conference. And I know many of us have compiled reports, so I'll start. I emailed my full conference notes to staff, but I'm really excited to take this opportunity to highlight a few of my key takeaways from the conference. Because there were so many sessions happening at the same time, many of the commissioners that attended divvied up, so that way we had full coverage and could get the most out of the conference to bring back to staff. So the three key takeaways I'd like to highlight in this meeting today are the expansive research and evaluation resources that are available to us through our membership of NRPA, the importance of a service-centric approach to parks and recreation, and the importance of and opportunities for prioritizing an inclusive nature of our parks. My first takeaway is about the vast array of research and evaluation available to us through NRPA. I went to a session where they highlighted many of the reports that they provide. Some of the highlights were a DEI report, a youth sports report, a salary survey across park districts in the country, a Parks and Rec inclusion report, and an economic impact of parks reports. Of particular interest to me was a resource called the Agency Performance Report that allows members to compare metrics such as number of parks, facilities, and other items like that with other districts and departments across the country of comparable size and budget and population. It seems like it could be an invaluable tool to identify how our district stacks up with other districts across the country. My second takeaway I want to highlight this evening is about the importance of a service-centric approach to parks and recreation. An example I learned about in one of the sessions was an organization that's using cross-park programming to improve the customer experience. And this was put on by Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks Department in Maryland. They highlighted this program I thought was really interesting, where they partner with local high schools and have these science classes come out to help them remove invasive plant species. Their program called Bay Invaders was beneficial to all involved because it included training teachers, teaching the students about causes and impacts of invasive species, and then the district got help removing these invasive species, which led to a great ecological impact and healthier parks. Through this program, Anne Arundel County was able to remove 6,500 pounds of invasive plant species over a 2-year period. So the impact was pretty great. And since, like all park districts, the Naperville Park District is continually dealing with the impact of invasive species, and we have so many top-notch high schools in our community, I think it might be worth considering if this is something we could partner with and get the local community involved and make a real impact on our parks. Thirdly, I was struck by a chord that ran throughout the park district, that parks and recreation are essential and that they play an important role in helping individuals feel included in our communities. One of the more impactful sessions for me was the Day 2 general session, presentation from Mitch Silver. He was a former New York Parks Commissioner. Mr. Silver stressed that diversity, equity, and inclusion are not something we do, it's who we are. These values have to be part of our DNA, and that parks tell the community that they're worthy of investment. I think this is particularly true when we think and plan for the accessibility of our parks. The opportunity we have to provide community development that is not just accommodating, but purposefully inclusive, and the impact that can have on individual members of our community and groups when they see physical resources designed for their specific needs in mind. This is one of the things that makes me proud to be part of the Naperville Park District. One of the most striking examples of this sort of inclusive planning and design is something that I came across in the exhibit hall, and I actually printed out some copies because I had never seen anything like this, and you kind of got to see it. Words don't really do it justice. But this is the Brava Universal Swing. As the representative from the company explained to me, this swing is different because it can be set in motion with any part of the user's body, arms, legs, core muscles. And according to the gentleman I spoke with at the conference, swing's also designed to mimic stimming behaviors so that people on the autism spectrum can participate in a way that can be calming and comfortable. It was really eye-opening to walk through the Grand Exhibit Hall and see how the parks and recreation industry is continually improving and developing cutting-edge products and equipment to meet diverse needs of diverse communities. I think it's important that we as Naperville Park District stay abreast of these innovations so we can continue to provide the best programs, parks, and facilities for our residents. And finally, I'd just like to say how thankful I am to my board predecessors for prioritizing board development and education in our board policies and budget. As Park District Commissioners, I know all of us on this board take our job seriously. In addition to being knowledgeable about our facilities, parks, and programs, it's important we stay current on the opportunities and challenges facing the parks and recreation industry and our community. Participating in events like the NRPA conference gives us the knowledge, tools, and connections necessary to ensure that the Naperville Park District remains the elite organization of people, the people of Naperville have come to expect. Those are my top level notes. Rich, do you have any takeaways from the conference you'd like to share?
Sure, thank you. The Naperville Park District's vision statement calls for us to be a national leader. In fact, it's the first part of our vision statement. To echo what Vice President Gibson just said, in order to be a national leader, I think it's important that representatives of our board and staff are present at the national conference for our industry. And for this reason, I choose to attend the NRPA conference whenever my schedule permits. That said, in my opinion, the time has come to eliminate national and state conference-related expense reports for elected officials for anything other than conference registration cost. This was my approach to the NRPA conference this year and will be my approach for any and all future conferences, state and national, so long as I serve on this board. At a moment in time when the district is dealing with decreased program revenues due to the lingering impact of the pandemic, and as various board members have repeatedly called for a focus on the fee assistance program to help struggling Naperville families, just doesn't seem right for elected officials to utilize tax dollars for airline tickets, nice hotels, meals, entertainment, or Uber rides. Maybe in the past and maybe at some point in the future, but not right now. While it was great to finally see friends and colleagues in the industry in person, face to face,